Gladilo, your host for today's debate. For today's debate, we are going to follow the British Parliament style. This debate is between the government team and the opposition team with the motion experimenting on animal is unethical. The debate consists for two teams with 4 speakers on either side. Each speaker should be deliver of 5 minutes and team gains at least 1 point into the first and the last minute for each speech is protected from POI. So without further ado, let's make our debate from the government's opening speaker. We have Pasbong Lord as the Prime Minister. Thanyapon Kosalat as the Deputy Prime Minister. We have the government closing speaker of Parliament Hui as the member of the government and Tiplungna Amhai as the government whip. From opposition team, we have the opening speaker Tapapak Karapan as the leader of the opposition, Pitya Shalat as the duty leader of opposition. For the opposition closing speaker, we have Shanyani Bohan as the member of the opposition and Piyapon Purana as the opposition whip. Now let's meet our judges. Thanisit Siwongsa, Warapat Rakam, and Nerasot Warod. Okay, now let's begin the debate.
Good afternoon to respected speaker, honorable judges, member of opposition team and audience in class. Before I go forward, I will ask today I would like to define today's motion. This house believes that experimenting on animals is unethical. According to the Cambridge Dictionary of Contemporary English, ethical means standard of right and wrong. That is quite what humans ought to do. Usually in terms of right, obligation, benefit, also sociality, fairness of specific virtue. Some years ago, sociologists Raymond Bahams asked business people, what does ethics mean to you? Amongst their reply were the following: ethics has to do with what feeling to me is right or wrong. Ethics has to do with my belief. Being ethical is doing what the law requires. And ethics consists of the standard of behavior our society accepts. But unethical is a career different from ethical. Today, I ask the Prime Minister will be the first speaker of government and will present first argument. First of all, I would like to say animal experiments are good, unreliable, and even dangerous. How dare I say that? Because the harmful use of animal is an experiment is not only cruel but also often ineffective. Animals do not get many of the human diseases that people do, such major type of heart disease, many type cancers, HIV, Parkinson cancers, or schizophrenia. Instead, signs of these diseases are of artificial induced in animals in laboratories in the attempt to mimic human disease. Yes, such experiments belittle the complexity of the human conditions, which are affected by wide-ranging variables such as genetics, social, social economic factors deeply rooted psychological issues and different personal experiences. It is not surprising to find that treatments showing promise in animal rarely work in humans. Not only are many animals live being wrong, but effective treatment are being mistakenly discarded and harmful treatments are getting through. The support of animal testing is based largely on anecdote. Is not backed up. We believe by the scientific evidence that out there, despite many decades of study conditions such as cancers, Alzheimer's diseases, Parkinson's diseases, and AIDS in animals. We do not yet have reliable and fully effective cures. If you believe that this is not unethical, I, I encourage you to consider, and if you believe that animal testing improves medicine and science, I would like to inform you and that there are numerous alternatives that we can test, not test. Animal must be using experiments and also there are alternatives, for instance, computer model, cell and tissue cancers, and vitro testing that can be used in the replacement of animal. It is neither poisonous or harmful to animal. Thank you.
Good. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. We as the opposition are here to prove that experiment on the animal is ethical. Later it is morally correct. As a leader of the opposition, I will present specific reasons that will prove that experimenting on animal is ethical or right, and point out the flaw of the Prime Minister's argument first. I will point out what's wrong with their argument. They define the motion animal testing is moral wrong, but we say that this is the right because the result is good. The torment at the animal according to the argument we will present to you. And they say animal may not get many diseases like human, but we would like to say that animal that we use in laboratory, we allow that animal have many of major biological system in the animal from digestion to the this work in the same way with human. Today I will talk about the ethical theory involved and animal testing used in research. Animals continue to play a key role in helping researchers evaluate new drugs and medical treatment for the efficacy and and safety as well as identifying unwanted or dangerous side effects. Many have debated the ethics of using animals to test various scientific, medical, and cosmetic procedures, but it is undeniable that one of the keys to the rapid advancement of animal testing in this animal experiment, I would like to offer an ethical point of view. Ethics are a process that is both an art and a science. There are generally three philosophical processes, but today I should only two that can change your ethical reasoning. 1. Consequentialism is the greatest good for the greater number of people, which is based on what will benefit the majority. For example, the survival rate for breast cancer treatment has increased from 60% to 80% over the past 20 years. One of these treatments is herdisettin, which was developed using rat, mice, hamster, and monkey. 2. Deontology is one life that should be treated and dignity and respect because they have a right, but if we took at animal testing as wrong and no one dares to, we will lose many people's lives. If you look at the deontology, that animal testing is wrong, but we strongly believe that it's right according to consequentialism. For reason, we will refer to laboratory animals were represented in the study, especially to make people have a better quality of life than before. Because if there are no animals as the starting point for study, all education must come to people. Before we get to the animal testing stage, it has to be tested on cells first. But if the substance is unsafe for sale, it won't be tested in animals. This actually happened on the hospital, research center, university, so it can be assured that during the experiment these animals are well cared for in the right environment and no animal cruelty took place. Before we can take it has to be tested first. We can't go and buy animals and try them by ourselves. You must abstain permission from the different authority first. You must ask what the purpose of the experiment is and for what purpose it is necessary to use the life of animal and where it is beneficial to the world. He would also the low number to not let the animal die unnecessarily. If it was too low, the experiment result or stand wouldn't be used ever both. The statistician would die for free. He would have updated the amount the hereas he will look at our experimental method. It is too cruel to animal. If it is too much suffering for animal, they will not allow us to experiment with the purpose. This has to be done every time and anybody test used finally. It is an experiment. Elimination is still according to the principle. We say that we get rid of animal for at least two reasons. The first is that we don't use it. The second is to prevent the animal from suffering from repeated. So we are going to get rid of all of the animal. After the experiment we will also have a manual on how to deal with experiment animals. By the way, this would be a way to make an animal suffer as little as possible, like in a rabbit. It is an overdose of sleeping pills. When you feel sleepy and then slowly fall asleep and die peacefully, it is the least painful way for the animal. In some experiments, such as checking the behavior of animals as behavioral testing in the dogs, that was not injected with our special training was normal for the dog. In a case like this, they won't get rid of the test animal. It also depends on the model which experiment is used or drug must be tested on the animal for the safety before they can be using human, which reduces the potential for side effects and human mortality. Stopping research on animals and also unethical because it will greatly affect the development in new knowledge and treatment of people with health conditions. We need a lot of help, and so we would like to confirm that we strongly believe that animal testing is ethical. Thank you.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. As the second speaker of the government team, I will present two arguments and will also review the arguments presented by the opposition team. First of all, I'm afraid I can't agree with the leader of opposition because from the analysis that comparing between animal experiments and non-animal experiments methods found that crude skin algae test in the guinea pigs and mice only predict human reaction 72% and 82% of the time, respectively, but a combination of the chemistry and cell-based alternative methods has been shown to accurately predict humans' reaction more than 90% of the time. Second, the nutrient-based skin irritation test in rabbit can only predict human skin reaction 60% of the time, but using reconstituted human skin is up to 86 accurate. Third, the standard test of pregnant rat to find out if chemical or drug may harm the developing baby can only detect 60 of dangerous substance, but a cell-based test has 100% accuracy at detecting very toxic chemical. Fourth, the expensive and time-consuming 2 years study to assess whether a substance is cancerous to humans is only able to predict human cancer 42% of the time. A cell-based test can predict 90% of non-human carcinogens. The data show that non-animal methods are better than animal experiments. Hereafter, I will discuss an example of alternative to animal testing from the first speaker, that is in vitro testing. Researchers have created organs on chip that contain human cells grown in a state-of-the-art system to mimic the structure and function of human organs and organ systems. The chip can be used instead of animals in disease research, drug testing, and toxicity testing have been shown to replicate human physiology, disease, and drug response more accurately than crude animal experiments do. Some companies, such as Aviolize, Mimitas, and Incorporated, have already turned this chip into product that other researchers can use in place of animals. A variety of cell-based tests and tissue models can be used to assess the safety of drug, chemical, cosmetic, and consumer products. For example, MedTech Life Science epidermal tissue model is a three-dimensional Human cell-derived model that can be used to replace rabbit in painful, prolonged experiments that have traditionally been used to evaluate chemical for their ability to corrode or irritate the skin, and it is the first of its kind three-dimensional models of the respect part of the human lung. The model composed of the human cells can be used to study the effects of inhaling different types of chemicals, pathogens, and e-cigarette smoke. Devices made by German-based manufacturer virtual cells are used to expose human lung cells in a dish to chemicals in order to test the effect in inhaled substance. Everyday humans inhale numerous chemicals, some intentionally and some inadvertently using the virtual cells machines. Human cells are exposed to the airborne chemical on one side while receiving nutrients from the blood and light liquid on the others, mimicking what actually occurs when a chemical enters a human lung. This device, as well as epiduriola, can replace the current method of confining rats to tiny tubes and forcing them to inhale toxic substance for hours before they are eventually killed. Researchers developed tests that use human blood cells to detect contaminants in drugs that cause a potentially dangerous fever response when they enter the body. The non-animal methods replace the crude method of eating horseshoe crab or restraining rabbits, injecting them with drugs or extract from medical device and taking their temperature regularly to monitor if they develop a fever. Animal experiments are widely used to develop new medicine and to test the safety of other products. Today, 25 to 100 million vertebrates per year are used in research and testing for a wide range of purposes. The major areas are drug research, testing of vaccines, and other biological and cancer research, whereas about 30% of the animals are used for other purposes, such as fundamental research, diagnostics, and so on. Mice and rats are the most frequently used animal species. In many European countries, it is mandatory by national law to rate the level of discomfort for animals in experiment in minor, moderate, and severe. On average, 50% of the laboratory animals experience minor discomfort. For instance, single blood sampling, 30% moderate, for instance, recovery from anesthesia, and 20% severe, for instance, toxicity test. Animal experiments have been subject to criticism ever since animals were used for research purposes. Criticism focuses in general on the ethical question whether man has the right to use animals, and on the reliability and necessity of animal experiments. History has proven that reliability cannot be guaranteed. Results obtained in animals might not be reliably extrapolated. Human ends, in spite of severe animal experiments and clinical trial in human side effects of drug may not be recognized due to incidents or non-detectable effects in animals such as minor headache and hallucination. From what has been told, it is point out what we have the alternative to animal experimenting. So do you think that experiment on animal is the best choice? Lastly, I strongly believe that experiment on animal is unethical. Thank you. We strongly believe that animal testing is ethical. We strongly believe that animal testing is ethical. I will present specific reasons to prove that animal testing is morally right. But before I come to my argument, I will point out what's wrong with their argument. They say that they have alternative way that not use animal. We agree with them, but I know that the tissue model can use, but the costs are very high. And also, using the animal can give the accurate result and and then they are not a true life replication of the human body and can only stimulate a few functions and activities. As long as the models are unable to reproduce systemic response, meaning affecting the whole body, animal testing is remain unviable because certain effects cannot be captured using reduction system. Today, I will talk about the use of animal in medical advances. Medical research with animals has helped to extend and improve the quality of life for millions of people. Not only human, but also animal benefit from biomedical research, as carried out on animals lead directly to veterinary treatment. This is why we believe that animal testing is ethical. Of course, there are differences between animals and people, but there are also striking similarities. Humans share at least 90% of their genes with every other mammal, which is why they are so useful for understanding human physiology and disease. And many of major biological systems in animals, from digestion to the cardiovascular system, this work in the same way with humans. Most of the diseases occur in humans. It is often found to cause disease in other animals as well, which mean animals provide invaluable information that cannot be replaced by computer modeling, cell culture, or human experimentation. Animal research contributed to 70% of the Nobel Prizes for physiology or medicine. Many award-winning scientists affirm that they could not have made their discoveries without animals. The following are examples of this achievement. First is the polio vaccine. This advance alone has saved millions of lives, and the World Health Organization is close to eliminate polio through its worldwide vaccination. 40 years of research using monkeys and mice lead to the introduction of vaccine in 1950s. Today, polio is virtually unknown in the United States and Europe, and instances of polio have decreased significantly throughout developing countries. The discovery of diabetes treatment with insulin injection, which was developed by COVID-19 and based to study in dogs and rabbits. Their extracts were used successfully in dogs and then in patients in 1922 with dramatic results. Nowadays, insulin was later used to treat diabetes in animals as well. Animal tests normally constitute a critical step in vaccine and drug development before they can be made available. The largest one that cannot be missed is the COVID vaccine. Even though animal research is a fundamental step in the search for COVID-19 vaccine for humans, in the context of worldwide pandemics, waiting for over a decade for a vaccine isn't acceptable scenario. So Pfizer and Moderna are opposed to simultaneous test their vaccine on mice and monkey while they were conducting phase 1 trial on animals, trial on humans. Previously, the first monkey, yes, please. Because we think that there are many advances or medical advance from the Nobel Prizes that get and is directly from the animal testing and and also and also and also and also the medicine or treatment that we use nowadays is usually have the have the has the evolution from the study of animal. From our real life, we just got 2 doses of Pfizer last month, right? Previously, the first monkey vaccination was done at the National Primate at Saraburi at the National Primate Center on May 23. The stimulation was completed in a second dose 1 month apart. Efficacy, the result was positive after being boosted with the second dose of the vaccine. However, previously when people hear the news that they inject other types such as Sinovac and die, there will be many students afraid to inject Pfizer too. Yet you see it is difficult for researchers to find volunteers. You need to be able to provide informed consent to participate in testing new drugs that have not been tested on animals before. In addition, there are organ transplant, mRNA scanning, gene therapy, blood transfusion, asthma therapy, chemotherapy for cancer, and so on that involve animal testing. Of course, animal testing brings knowledge to use in animal, but also they beneficial to animal as well, especially the production of medicine that can cause the problem in both human and animal. As you can see, they die for their species too, not only for us. Staying with the truth, we are humans, not animals. According to the reality of life, we think it's right because ultimately, the benefits of humanity are so great. The way we live today is partly due to advances in science and technology that come at the cost of laboratory animals. So for the reason we have mentioned compared to consequentialism, we strongly believe that animal testing is ethical. Thank you.
Good afternoon. First of all, I would like to say thank you to the deputy leader of the opposition. Ladies and gentlemen, just now the opposition speaker tried to convince us that experimenting on animals is ethical. The deputy leader of the opposition basically said that test animals have many benefits both from the experiment to produce the the drug, food toxicity test, cosmetic, and other things. And I would like to say that animal experiment began around 1621, and I think from what you have, it was the first experiment that inventory required animal testing, but now we are living in an area where science and medicine have advanced greatly, so we think we don't need to use animal for testing. If you yes, so let's move on my argument today. As a member of government, I'm going to talk about another experiment that can also avoid the use of animal. At the present, many companies focus on an area alert to social trend want to end the cruelty to these animals by campaigning and promotion beauty that does not depend on pain by this brand have turned to testing cosmetics. By other methods such as protein tissue culture is used as a test for chemical reaction. The use of cultured human cells to test the safety of ingredient in cosmetics. The use of protein tissue culture method called eye-type for eye makeup to test for irritation in human eyes. There is an increasing trend in the use of non-animal alternative testing method for the safety of health products. The eye irritation test by dress rapid eye test is one method that uses culture cell or organ from the structure plan according to the OECD test guideline for 3A. Result from the test for the reliability of the method with unknown chemical class. Eye irritability according to the United Nations globally harmonized system of classification and labeling of chemical of 24 species, given the purity, sensitivity, accuracy, for positive and for negative value of 93, 78, 88, and 22%. Effects degree. This study showed that
As the opposition team, my team firmly believes that experimenting on animals is ethical. But before I come to my arguments, I would like to rebut some arguments that the government team has said. He said that we shouldn't use animal testing, but what he said in it is that ideal world only the scientific consensus is that many questions can still only be answered by animal study, and he said that science and medicine nowadays are developed, but in fact the medicine that we have in nowadays all come from the testing that use animal because nobody in the world will dare to use our life. And now let's move on to my arguments. Nowadays, cosmetics are something that most people focus on and use every day, whether they are celebrities, students, or ordinary people. And usually, before each cosmetic can come out, they have to be tested with different things. And the creatures that humans test to see if those cosmetics are safe are animals. Everyone might think it is wrong to use animals,
but today I'm going to prove that using animal for testing in the cosmetic industry is the right thing to do. The first information that I will give to you is the use of various chemicals. Of course, no human would want to take the risk of experimenting with anything they are unsure of, whether it's safe or not. Then humans have to find a way to test other living things first. If living beings are safe, human may be safe, but if the living is not safe, which human would dare to use it? The same is true in the cosmetic industry. In order to produce cosmetic for sale, it must be certified to meet the standard and can be used safely. And when the product must always pass the good manufacturing practice certificate to verify the production standard first. That means if human being encounter a new substance that has never been used before, if animals are not used for testing, it must be tested on human immediately. It cannot be tested with cell culture because cell culture takes a long time to do and the costs are very high. When humans bring unknown substance to use blindly in humans together and then the person dies, the punishment law that kills humans into death is definitely more serious than animal cruelty. And the second information is the reason we have to do animal testing is because in terms of studying irritation reactions, in the first case, assuming that we try to give a certain drug to some people, they can say that it doesn't hurt even if it hurts, which hides the truth. But if it's the animal, it won't be able to control it and will show the reaction immediately when it hurts. And the second case is we use animal. If we use animal, we can control the environment, including food, temperature, and so on. But if it's human, we won't be able to control the environment. And this information that I have said, I also have the example for you from the viral trend over the past 8 months, zebra, which it was shared and watched by many people until it had been talked all over the world. It reflects the post-cruelty of the cosmetic and beauty product industry, but actually in this clip, there are some parts that are not correct. The first scene is the scene where Rap says he is blind in the right eye, the right ear can't hear anything, and his back has a valve. In fact, when we use animal for testing, we only do one experiment per animal, and after that we will kill the animal. The first reason for doing this is because, let's say we have tried eye drop on an animal, then we continue to apply the cream. We will never be able to know if the eye drop that we have given previously will affect the skin or not. So if we repeat the experiment on the same animal, there will be errors or inaccuracy in the experimental results. Therefore, we will not use the same animal to test multiple drugs. And the second reason is a moral reason, that is, it shouldn't have to suffer too much. Contrast was only too much of a pain, so we will just let it die. In short, when we finish using an animal, we will kill it and don't use it again. And the second scene is in the last scene where I walk in and say that if you don't use a cosmetic brand that has been tested on animal, Rab would be out of a job and would be on the field like a normal rabbit. This is very not true because the animal used in the experiment must be animals that are specifically raised only. It's a specific species raised for testing purpose. The animal must be in a very clear condition. For example, must stay in this temperature, must eat this food only. That is, they cannot survive in nature because in nature the temperature can change all the time and there is a lot of food. Suppose we bought an experimental rabbit to test one and then we release it. That rabbit will die because it doesn't have any innate survival instinct. The animal that we took to the test were through breeding to suit the experiment. From the point of the scientific, it is impossible to avoid the use of animals
in experiment altogether. All that can be done is to minimize consumption, use for maximum benefit, use the best way to treat animals, and try to use alternative methods as much as possible. And for all of this information and example, my team firmly believes that experimenting on animals is ethical. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is government view. From the member of oppositions, they said about we should using animal for experimenting, but we would like to say that we should focus on the program because before the experiment is successful, millions of animals will suffer and many dies from this experiment. However, wouldn't it be better for humans to recognize the value of animal life? Now, I will move on to my argument. In fact, experimenting on animals is acceptable, but if and only if suffering is minimized in all experiments, human benefits are gained which could not be obtained by using other methods. But at the same time, the general opinion is that animals have a moral status and that our treatment of them should be subject to ethical considerations, such which are reflected in the following position. Firstly, animals have an intrinsic value which must be respected. Secondly, animals are sentient creatures with the capacity to feel pain and the interests of animals must therefore be taken into consideration. Thirdly, our treatment of animals, including the use of animals in research, is an expression of our attitude and influences us as moral actors. Later, we should focus what is the problem from experimenting on animals. Let me give an example. First fact, experimenting on animals failed with 9 out of 10. Experiment for cancer drug, we have achieved excellent results in animal testing, especially in rats. Instead, it failed when it was applied to human at a ratio of 9 to 10, and of the 100 neurologic drugs that actually work for only 2 because there are complex factors that make it incompatible with human. Second fact, the animal model is still inaccurate. Scientists who have worked with laboratory animals agree because the lab animal they didn't deliver the satisfying result they had hoped, especially in the future that will have to be more precise and more complicated. According to the aforementioned, between 2015 and 2020, more than 1 billion animal studies were performed worldwide, according to the Alternative to Laboratory Animals or ATLA figures. According to ATLA experts, about 192 million animals will be tested on board items each year. According to statistics given by the Israel news source, only 3% of the animals survived the trial, with 97% dying during it or have been put to death. Now moving on to a mention from the member of government. As everyone has heard the argument from our side, I am here to telling you all once again that it is a good idea to use something else in animal testing, whether using in vitro method in this experiment. Researchers created organs on chip to mimic the structure and function of human organs and organ system. The chip could be used as a substitute for animal in disease research, drug testing, and toxicity testing, or it will be a test using cells and tissues model. The question I would like to ask everyone is, are we going to allow the tax we pay to be used for the suffering that animals suffer? What are your thoughts on this question? Experiment, as can be seen, do more than only cause pain to animals, but it also illustrates the avarice of humans who want to experiment just for the benefit of humans. How will the animal profit from this experiment? And the animal replacement effort that was not always. Reducing the number of lab animals by at least 20% has already been considered a success. The increase in ethical questioning of laboratory as animal by society in all scientific activity is not a hindrance to progress, but our argument is that we want everyone to come together to find solutions that are more sustainable for every meaningful life in this world. And this issue is the same as one philosopher said, shame on the misguided, divided, the distracted, and the divided. Shame. You have allowed deceptive men to corrupt and desensitize your heart and mind to unethically feel their greed. So, ladies and gentlemen, at the end of it, we strongly believe that experimenting on animals is unethical. Thank you.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, the opposition side has told you from the beginning of the debate. We strongly believe that animal testing is right. Now I will supply the arguments the opponent has made. First speaker mentioned animal of extremely important to we are here to assembly cause very challenging that is resolved on trains from animal experiments can bring many to placement and animal testing must be testing is called first. It's the substance in cells that will not to be tested on animal or laboratory animal will have from the universal environment suitable for a special species and animal that have already been tested will not be retested to the animal many times. Or second speaker that to the animal tending life to the development of
Okay, let's wait for the result of the viewing in the debate. Thank you.
เสร็จแล้วใช่ไหมเนี่ย